am Jeff, and today I am here with another Jeff. He's going to go simply by Jeff from FOA. And FOA is the Friends of Abe, an underground conservative group that has since been disbanded to my knowledge, but it was a place where people like myself, like Jeff, could go and have free speech without being basically hated or shut down or screamed at or yelled at or all the other particular things that liberal leftists put upon conservatives with a voice. And this group was formed by Gary Sinise. We often had a lot of people like John Voight that would kind of head the meetings when we'd get together. And we had some offshoot groups as well that involved Andrew Breitbart. Jeff and I didn't know each other at the time. We had a different, I think I was probably with FOA for about a decade or so, but after I left the Hollywood industry without leaving the movie industry, of course, Jeff stepped into that environment, and the rest is all history. Jeff, take it away. What are your fond memories of FOA? And welcome.
Jeff, thank you. You have a great name, by the way. You know, I have so many great memories of FOA. I joined in 2012, and that's when my friend Michael, good friend of mine, brought me in, because back then, Jeff, if you remember, you couldn't just join on your own. You had to have a sponsor. So Michael was my sponsor, great writer, very talented guy, brought me in 2012. And FOA, what I was told, was still very much in its heyday. And it would last another 2 or 3 years. And then it started to nosedive, unfortunately, which I won't get into now. I saw so many great speakers. We saw Glenn Beck in person, Ted Cruz, met Ted in LA, and it was really, really a special thing. Met so many great, talented, conservative people in the industry with similar stories of being frustrated with their political beliefs and being biased against by the inclusion people. The inclusion people. We include you, except you. And so those first 3 years went by really quick. Got to meet Gary Sinise at a Christmas party in 2012. And that was a thrill. It really was. Great guy. And you could see why it took off, Jeff. It really took off. I'll have to think of all the other speakers. Probably the number one event that stood out for me was seeing Anton and Scalia at the Reagan Library, and it was a star-studded event. Voight, as you mentioned, was there. Kevin Sorbo, Dana Carvey got up and did some stand-up, and it was just a treat to be there. And I was so sad when it disbanded. I still don't know all the reasons why. I've heard various theories, but it was a real loss for all of us. So, yeah, I really wish, Jeff, it would come back in some form, but I'm not crossing my fingers.
Well, I mean, there are some individuals that have rebanded together in small groups. Most of us have moved outside of Los Angeles just because of the oppressive nature and the crime and everything else that we have to deal with there. Into environment, because we're creative people, we have to be in environments that aren't oppressive, and it's very hard to work around individuals that are, and this is no exaggeration, they hate you. You don't even have to speak a word for people in the movie industry that are on the left, that are liberals, to hate you. They just know somehow. Yeah, that's interesting. So I had left the country basically at that point. I had had enough, and I went on a 3-year journey to South Asia. I started off for 11 days. I left, And it was so great not being able to listen and be surrounded by all of that anymore. The TV news was gone. The radio listening that I would do to talk radio, even though I was listening to conservative people like Rush Limbaugh and Dennis Prager and so forth, I didn't have that anymore. So I was completely out of the loop, which was nice. You just get to a point where even having friendships and other conservatives there to talk to and commiserate with you, and misery loves company, and that's a lot of what it was. Wouldn't you say?
Oh God, yes. I mean, you're right on. Uh, it was that and much more. There was a lot of commiserating over the individual stories of what each person had been through in their personal journey, and it would be great, Jeff. Actually, I think if you could seek others out in FOA and interview as many as you could. I know a lot of the stories would overlap, but many wouldn't. And I don't think it would be super difficult to find a lot of them. You probably know a lot of them, but they would all have an interesting take. Jeff, you mentioned our brothers and sisters, liberals and progressives. And I always thought it was ironic how many of them spoke of love, togetherness, non-judgment, forgiveness, but living it was a different thing. So I would always tell them, look, if you have this philosophy, live it. Live it. And very few would. So I know at this point I'm preaching to the choir, but anytime, Jeff, that I saw a car in Hollywood with a coexist sticker, that was just a sign for me to just run as fast as you can. Just get out, go. Even if you're barefooted running over glass to get out. So go ahead.
I was going to share a story about that. I was working late night at the Drew Carey green screen show. Now, this is after his cast of improv people that had What's My Line. They took it one step further with improv and decided to add animations behind these funny ideas that they would come up in an improv way. And one night, I was working the graveyard shift. We had to turn these shows around very quickly. So I went out for lunch at, I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning, to Pink's Hot Dogs. They were like one of the only places that were open. And I came back at night, parked my car, and a huge rainstorm is going on. I mean, the streets are flooding. And that's a little unusual most of the time for Los Angeles. And so I went inside, and I sit down, and I go back to work. And about 45 minutes later, somebody else comes back from lunch, and I overhear him talking to somebody else. He says, yeah, I saw this guy out there. He had a Bush bumper sticker, and he left his lights on, but I'm not going to tell anybody because it's got the Bush bumper sticker. And then he sat down and proceeded to work, and I just was so fuming mad.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So at this point, I got up and I ran out, splashing through the water, just soaked. My shoes are soaking wet. Now I'm going to have to be this way until whatever time I got off. I don't know what it was, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's too late. My battery was already dead. I came back in.
Oh, that was your car.
That was my car.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I started asking around, hey, you got jumper cables? And there was a producer that had his door open, and he'd overheard this conversation. And I know that he's a libertarian. Don't ask me how I knew that at the time, but I know he was a libertarian. And it says, hey, I got jumper cables. I'll go out and help you. But that's a typical story of the kind of hatred that we had to endure in the Hollywood culture. Bumper stickers.
Isn't it funny, Jeff, how I always say they have everything reversed. So they see themselves as the people of love. They see people like us as the people of hate, as if they have a scientific device that can measure hate inside each individual. And boy, wouldn't it be fascinating if we could do that to really find out. I think a lot of liberals would be very surprised to know that fact. Uh, when I was at the Writers Guild, I was a member of a committee, and they used to have it catered. And finest foods, finest desserts. And at the end of the night, there were a few things left over, including one chocolate chip cookie. I went over and I grabbed the cookie, and this fine progressive lady said, "That's my fucking chocolate chip cookie. You give it to me. I'm taking it home to my daughter." And I don't know why, because now I'd either keep it or smash it in her face, but I gave it to her. I just said, "Here, if you want it that bad, take it." So this is one example of many where they just, their perception is off in what they see. And they just, in my opinion, they do not see reality as it is. I mean, look at the evidence we have today. I mean, how many genders are there? 312? Am I an elephant? Am I a giraffe? All I have to do is just identify as one. So there are no, I've said this for a long time, Jeff, with them, there are no operating principles. That's why there are no rules. And this is why the best disguise they have is change. So change just, green lights everything, every behavior. Well, let's change. We got to change. But they keep forgetting that two can play. So we'll see where this goes.
I remember going out to the Turner Ranch for an event where people like Dennis Miller came and spoke. And it's funny. I was working as a video producer. I produced some of the satire music parodies and satires from movie scenes of famous movies for Louder with Crowder. And somebody that was brought back in there sat across from me. He and I got talking, and he was also FOA. And this is in Texas now, up in Plano area. And we got talking. Turns out he was FOA, and he and I figured out that we were sitting pretty much back to back from each other at this event out at Turner Ranch. And we didn't even know each other at that time. This is all just kind of like reminiscing of the good old days. And so we were able to figure out that we were there. We must have brushed shoulders probably at the food line or something. Well, there wasn't a food line. They all served us. It was really done well. I miss those things. Because we're very displaced now. A lot of us have been scattered all over the U.S. And we're working in the movie industry to various degrees. The movie industry, of course, the whole I can't say that word. The whole scam, demic, destroyed a lot of Hollywood movie production. But for you and I, we were not really happy with a lot of directions and a lot of messaging that was taking place in the movie industry. So I think we're going through a shaking up of the movie industry. We're definitely not seeing the number of movies we saw in the cinema before. We're going to come back strong. It's not going to be the old Hollywood. It's going to be something new. And I believe people of faith and conservatives are going to be coming back and taking over all of this.
Amen, brother. Amen.
So
for sure.
So I mean, where we're at right now is we're scattered and we're trying to regroup in smaller groups. I've got a friend, Chuck Pierce, up in Nashville now. He's been instrumental in bringing together a men's fellowship of smoking cigars and talking about these kind of things and getting American men back to being masculine again, to pursuing masculinity and greatness, and still to some degree, I think he brought a couple other writers, and we failed to mention that at the very beginning. You're a very talented writer, Jeff. So let me take this analogy that I was just making that was going nowhere, obviously, and toss this over to you. Tell us your background, what was going on in your life in this script writing industry as a scriptwriter.
Well, I got a really big break in 1996 when I sold my first script. However, I had been working on that script for more than 3 years prior to that. And of course, even back then, it was very difficult to get an agent with any unsolicited material. So what I did is I took the time, and this took a month or two, to personally handwrite 400 letters.
Wow.
To agents all over Hollywood, even a few in New York. And I would send out these letters 10, 20 at a time. Hey, I've got this script. Can you please read it? Here's the log line. I got a response out of the 400 from 40 who said they'd read it. So that was 10%. Sent these 40 agents the script, which was called Lonely Are the Dead. It was very similar to a movie called The Sixth Sense. And out of the 40, I got a lot of rejection letters, tons of rejection letters. I got rejection letters, of course, from the 400 that I initially approached. And I saved them all. I still have them. And if you want to use some of those, you can show them if you want. Because I think it's motivating, Jeff, to show you what can be done. And I had a friend who told me, and he was a good friend, he said, Jeff, everything in the world has been written, every possible story. Why would you write? And I remember I felt like, that's not what I was born for. If I was born to write and create, that's what I'm going to do. Whatever happens, happens. So 4 people out of the 40 wanted to represent me, and one of them was the Gersh Agency, which was the biggest and the best. The person there called me. He said, Jeff, I got your letter. You sent in your script, and I was going home on a Friday night, and he goes, I swear to God, your script fell off a stack onto the floor, and I saw it as a sign.
Wow, really?
I'm like, oh my God, are the gods like this, really? So he took the script home, read it, and said, I've got to see you immediately. And I went in. He said, I'm signing you now. We did that. Within 1 week, a major player at Propaganda Films, really nice guy, super nice guy by the name of Guyman Cassidy, somebody I respect even more today. He's had tremendous success. He wanted to bring the script in, and Steve Golan purchased it. And it was just a highlight. It was for a lot of money. It was in kind of a bidding war. But here's what I realized, Jeff, here's the lesson, is once that sold and it made the news in the Hollywood Reporter and Daily Variety, a lot of agents and people and production people wanted to see me, wanted to meet me. And I was driving all over town for weeks meeting these people.
Wow.
Well, the people who also wanted to, some people who wanted to meet me had also rejected the script or didn't like the script weeks or even a year earlier. And you realize in that moment that it's just perception. Because you can be an idiot or you can be a genius, but the one thing you've got to have is you've got to believe in yourself. Otherwise, no one else will. I also realized, Jeff, that very few people can see something that's good. Now, naturally, I'm biased, and I thought my script was good. But the people who really loved it ended up on Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead and they ended up having great success. So I would say to any person out there, writer, dreamer, creator, you just have to tune out the negativity. If you don't, it will drown you. And you can't listen to it, whether it's today, tomorrow, any other day. You've got to write what's in your heart and let it go. And God or the universe, however you want to put it, will do the rest. So that is the story of what happened to me initially.
Wow. Do you, I'm sure you do. But the audience, for those of you out in the audience that ever try to submit something, a script, or to land an agent, I got the same story. I'd written some scripts when I was just coming into the industry, and I didn't keep all mine. They've disappeared somewhere over time. But I just kept them, knowing that you get the standard form letters. Sorry, we can't take your unsolicited. Meaning you didn't get there by somebody's recommendation. That's usually how you do it. So I would say you beat the odds by 500,000 to 1 at least. I mean, there's just a lot of writers trying to get an agent in order to get their scripts represented into a studio. You beat the odds.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I mean, if you think about it, we beat the odds just being born, right?
Well,
we were each the winning sperm cell. That's what I'm told. So those odds were even greater. And who knows how it works, right? Because you hate to sit back and think, oh gosh, everything's just random chance. Yeah. The script fell off the pile. Well, it had to get there first. And then he had to like it. And then he had to send it to somebody else, and then they had to like it. So there's a lot that has to happen. But I always felt that, it was my destiny, and you just have to keep going.
Did you?
No matter what.
Now, what always happens is when a script comes in like that, you're going through a gatekeeper as well. And usually that's somebody that's going to just, put it in a return envelope and send it back. And those are the days when they would actually be that nice to send a hard copy back to you. Today, it would just go in the circular file on the trash can. But I'm thinking here that you had to have a reader that had read through it and perhaps put it on the top of that pile. It just doesn't go right to one of the top agents like that. Did you ever find out about that part of it?
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure that yes, my script did receive coverage. And I found out later, just from meeting various production people and others, because I've met so many people, my head was spinning, that my first script, like any script, drew a variety of opinions, thumbs up, thumbs down. And again, I ask, what is something? It's what you believe it is. So some people thought I got notes back saying, you lost my interest in the first 20 pages. Mm-hmm. Others would say, I can tell it's really well written, but it's not for me. Mm-hmm. So I had 400 shots, and I wanted to take them all at once because I sent a lot of letters to, let's say, CAA, right? So I would send all the letters to CAA on the same day to, say, 6 or 7 different agents, hoping they didn't communicate with each other. Now, they probably have a system where as soon as a script comes in, everybody else knows. But I think back then you could still get past that gatekeeping system somewhat and have multiple agents at one place read it. I don't think that exists anymore. So, did I answer your question?
I have a friend, and I forget the exact circumstances of this, but he had found his way, I think it was into the Universal lot, and was able to just wander into Robert Weiss's office and drop a script on the desk. Um, these were the days where if you had a clipboard under your hand and you had a package and you looked like you had a mission to do something inside of the studio, you could walk right past the security guards. And I had friends that did that. I mean, they would look like they belonged and just walked right past with the right attitude. And a couple of them, they wound up also inside of Amblin Entertainment, which is Spielberg's office, just kind of playing around in there. So those are fun times. There was a lot of us.
Great times.
There's a lot of us from all different backgrounds inside of FOA. And like you mentioned, some of the celebrity actors, Patricia Heaton was one of them as well. Andrew Breitbart had kind of a spin-off group, and he would host these pizza parties at a place called Barney's Beanery, usually. And they were different. Sometimes they were in Burbank, sometimes they were over the other side of the hill. We call that Los Angeles for those of us that lived in the valley. And Andrew would host these pizza parties. He'd out of pocket pay for them all, and he was he wasn't stingy with it, whatever. I mean, we're talking the biggest pizzas, as much as you could eat. And I actually met one of my producer partners there, Ira, and we've had a producing filmmaking relationship now for 20 years. And it's just the kind of thing where it's like, stand around, have some beers, know people that talk to people that have their defenses down, and that's a big thing. There's a double wall you have to jump over in Hollywood. First of all, nobody wants to be approached by anything or be approached about anything unless somebody's introduced you personally.
It's hard.
It's very hard. I had a friend that he had a great quote. When you're on a film set, you have what's called the craft services table, and the crew and the cast can wander over and have a bagel, have chips or whatever. But he came up with this great quote. The bagel is the great equalizer, meaning that everybody gets hungry, no matter if you're a big star or a DP or a PA, a production assistant. If you're standing at the craft service table and you're getting a bagel, you can strike up a conversation with anybody, no matter who they are. The great equalizer.
It's so true, Jeff. It really is. I mean, those are one of the few opportunities people have to be seen as an insider rather than an outsider. And it's amazing how, like I said, Hollywood says we're inclusive. We're inclusive, but boy, do they keep a tight circle. Every time you watch an award show, and I don't anymore, thank God, it's the same people.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same people. Closed group. And once they get in, they don't want anybody else new to come in.
Yeah.
So it has to change. And it's funny, they talk about diversity, and it's the same people getting the same awards year after year after year. Is that diverse? I don't think so. But for them, diversity is appearance. For conservatives, diversity is how you think. That's the difference.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I was just looking through an IMDb list the other night and just kind of looking through actors. And it's like really apparent that it really is a handful of people that dominate everything, and it really shouldn't be that way, because there's a lot of talented actors. Many of them far more talented than some of them that are just continually getting the TV series or getting the movie role offered to them. So in FOA, I mean, back at Andrew's events at the pizza parties. Like Adam Baldwin, not related to what's the other guy?
Alec.
Alec, right? No, different Baldwin altogether. So Adam Baldwin, he's done a lot of TV series. I mean, he was in one of my favorite ones called Firefly. Just a super nice guy. and just all around. And you know, anybody that's done any interviews, you know, Hollywood's like, oh yeah, I love this, such a nice, wonderful guy, people to work with, and a lot of times it's BS. They hate their guts. But when I say it, I truly mean it. Adam Baldwin was just a genuine guy, and a guy which we did sit down and have a beer together. And so there were all kinds of it. There were celebrities, there's writers, there's crew people. And I completely forgot about that. There's one more guy that I met. He was coming in for a tryout at Louder with Crowder as a producer and editor there. He also was at FOA, and he was at, I specifically met him and his wife at one of the Barney's Beanery events that Andrew was hosting. So I guess it's really indicative of what a small world it is, or maybe what a small group of people we are, that we kind of huddle together as conservative and people with values.
Jeff, do you think there's any chance that FOA in any form can reconstitute?
Yes, and it may not have to, and here's why. Let me give you the backstory first from what I've heard. After I left, the Never Trumpers came into the group, which was Jeremy Boring was at the top of it at that point. This is after I left. This is after the fact. I'm hearing this from friends that stayed on, and the Never Trumpers basically divided everybody, and it just disbanded. Now,
and that was the reason why. Sorry to cut you off.
That's what I've heard from a very, very reliable source. So the reason I think that we won't have to reform anything by FOA again is I am a firm believer that God is going to take this all out. I believe that he is a just God, a righteous God, and he's not going to be permissive of this anymore. And he's sent along messengers to tell us this. To some people that might sound crazy, but hey, when they
what?
Well, messengers of this future of basically that America falls. It's going to look like it has fallen completely. We're going to go through a dark blackout period, and then it's all going to come back, replaced with people that should be heading the movie studios, the people that should be heading up corporations and different industries, good people, reliable people that aren't going to profit from us while selling us drugs that kill us. So I don't believe that FOA will need to exist again. But you know what? Those of us that were blacklisted, as I was, we're going to come back and we're going to be looking around at the other people that are working in the film industry or whatever industry you might have come from, and we're going to see familiar faces, the good ones, the good guys in the white hats.
Yes, we will. And I'm sure when you reference God, I just hope you are using the correct pronoun. You would hate to right. You would hate to draw God's wrath if it's a they. All of a sudden.
Well, those are the other players. Those are when you might remember hearing about Christ casting the demons into the swine that ran off the hill and killed themselves. Well, this is one of the events. So Christ was talking to this man who was full of demons, and they referred to themselves as they, because he said, "We are many." So
true story. True story,
that's a
right?
True story. That you can look that up in the Bible. I'm sorry, I can't tell you what the exact verse is right there, but this they called him the demoniac, which is this demon, the demoniac, the demoniac, and he talked to this demon inside that identified itself as legion. We are legion, for we are many, and so Christ cast out this legion of demons that were inside this man into a legion of swine that went crazy and ran off the hill. And so there's your analogy of they. In the beginning, God made he, and he made she. And that's all.
And end of story. And Jeff, I got one more tiny story for you, which is at FOA. You mentioned the Never Trumpers. I did meet Jeremy Boring, but in 2015, Donald Trump had an event at FOA as, of course, the key featured speaker. I can't remember the downtown LA hotel, but I took my daughter. There were perhaps 250 people there, and that was an event to remember.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Leave us your questions and your comments below. We like to read through them and answer questions. People have a lot of questions. We like to answer them. So thanks for joining us today.